Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Tim, how's it going, brother?
Yeah, very well.
Good, good.
Yeah.
So, Tim, I have a topic that came up.
Hang on. I just said you. You always complain off air that I never ask how you are. So I'm asking how you are, and you brush on past it.
I didn't
Kind of
hear
like
you,
being
or
in
I
a
wasn't.
relationship with a female. No offense to the female listeners, by the way.
Ouch. I don't take any offense coming from you. So, anyway, guys.
Still didn't answer. Okay.
I'm doing great, man. We already talked about this, but I am doing well. Here it is. My family and I are looking for houses right now. You know, obviously amid COVID, things are opening up. We went yesterday and looked at some houses on land, about 6 acres in the mountains. So we're in that road right now. So lots going on at the Holt house, but lots of fun. And we actually have a babysitter or a nanny downstairs being interviewed right now as we record this.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear.
Which is actually kind of interesting, right? So the topic today, Tim, that I'm going to throw on the table is, what's your story?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea here, and I think all of us can relate to this, is what's the story that you have, well, one on other people, but more importantly for this conversation is, what's the story you have about yourself? What's the story you're telling yourself? I'm a business owner, so therefore I need to work 60 hours a week, right? That's a story, because there's other business owners like us that work a lot less than that. Another story could be, well, I'm an ex-athlete now, I'm just getting fat. Or a story around your spirituality. Maybe, you feel like a fallen angel, so to speak. We all have these stories that come through. And a lot of these stories that we hear about from the men that are coming through are stories that are passed down from generation to generation, right? It's the story of the father. And it's not necessarily just your father, but it's also the story of your father's father and your father's father after that. And, one of the analogies that, I like to use, and I can't remember who I got this from, but and I'll use this as an example, is there's a husband and wife, and they're getting ready for the holiday dinner. And the wife comes in, gets this nice, beautiful ham, and she cuts off the ends of the ham, right, both ends, and then she puts it in the pan and then puts it in the oven to bake. And the husband's sitting there and he goes, well, wait, I'm just curious. Every year you cut off the ends of this ham, and it's a beautiful ham. Why do you do that? And then the wife looks at him kind of puzzled and says, well, that's what my mom did it. And so she goes over, picks up the phone, and she calls her mom and says, Mom, how you doing, et cetera, et cetera. But my husband was just asking me, why do I cut off each end of the ham before we did in the oven? You've always done it, Mom. Why do you do it? What's the reasoning behind this? I assume it's an amazing, baking skill that's been passed down. And the mom says, well, geez, just the way we've always done it at my house too. Go call your grandmother. And so luckily the grandmother's alive. So the wife picks up the phone and calls grandma. It's the same thing. It says, Grandma, why did you always cut off the ends of the ham? Mom does it now for the holidays ever since I was a kid, and now I do it. I'm just curious, why do you do it? And grandma says, well, dear, back then we only had one pan. In order to get that pan in our small little oven, we had to cut the ends off the ham to fit it in. And so the wife laughs and the husband laughs, because it's just a story. It's something that we take for granted that's been passed down generation to generation, a learned behavior, if you will. And these learned behaviors become our stories, and our stories become our identity. And that's where it gets really important, guys, is when your stories become your identity, you want to be really careful on what that story is. And what I mean by that, when I say really careful, you want to really be the guardian of this dialogue that's happening inside of you. Because your stories are going to dictate, how you're feeling, right? When we get angry, it's because the story we have has not been met. An expectation would be another way of saying it, right? Unmet expectations is often why people get triggered or get angry. This could be around your wife, right? A common thing with marriages is people have perceived ideas of what their role should be. Oftentimes in a traditional relationship, which is probably not so traditional now, is the man goes out, he works, the wife stays home, takes care of the kids. And it's probably less so today, but What can happen as a fight is maybe in your wife's house, for example, the man always, mowed the lawn, right? And in your house, the woman, your mom, always mowed the lawn. And those are unwritten stories that create a lot of problems. But we can go a little deeper here into your story. This could also be a story about you being a horrible lover, right? Maybe you've had some problems in bed, premature ejaculation, or your wife's complaining, or it's just not as fun for you. When the story becomes you're not good in bed, right? And that story carries out each time you're with your wife. Your wife can feel it. You have less attraction, less interest in actually having sex with your wife. And so you start pushing away. And when you push away, that separates you guys. When you separate you guys, it starts to feel like you're roommates, right? And it all starts with a very simple story. And that story then gets ingrained into your identity. So, Tim, I know you and I have talked a lot about this. We've read a lot about this going through. What do you have to add to that conversation?
Lots. It's a great point. It's a great topic. I appreciate you bringing this topic up. Yeah, coincidentally, an hour ago, I was essentially deconstructing a story with a business owner because he had something happen with him at the weekend. Which resulted in his credit limit getting decreased for something that he didn't believe was going to affect his credit. He went to go pay for gas, and card got declined. Family's in the car, and it sent him into this whole spiral of depression, essentially, because that was basically his active line of credit for the business. It got literally slashed in half, and he's had a history of depression in the past. And so I was taking him through some of the exercises that we take the guys through in the fundamentals of Alpha to establish a foundation of peace. And essentially it was to paint the picture of the cascade that usually occurs with the story, because, yes, there's a story, right? Which can usually come in the form of a belief. But then also it can be experienced as well with an emotion, right? Usually. And then it then results in some kind of action that you take or don't take, and your body language looking a certain way. Maybe you're frowning, maybe you're slouching, maybe you are then snapping at your wife or your kids, or, there's all those things. So anyway, we call this the signature, right? So the point being is we're getting clear on the signature for this guy so that he could then catch it earlier. Because then when he's in certain situations and he's able to be aware that the story is coming up, instead of buying into the story and then before he knows it, the story playing out and becoming a reality yet again, he's able to recognize what's going on and catch it. And obviously this isn't something that happens overnight. And it's even something that you and I still do to this day, right? I can remember, I think it's something I'll be doing forever. I really do believe it's the difference between living consciously and unconsciously. The difference between life happening to you and you being reactive versus you creating life on your terms. This is a big piece of it. And, it might sound like a lot of work. But, in the beginning, it can feel that way too, to be honest. It's kind of like going to the gym, and you walk into the gym and you pick up the free weights and you go to do a chest press, and they're wobbling all over the place and it's bouncing off your chest at the bottom, and you're sore for days afterwards, and you go back again, and it's just really awkward for probably that first month or so. But when you stick at it, on the other side of that is then some really great consistency. Your confidence builds, the weights are feeling good, you're seeing some changes in your body, and even if you have a day or two off at that point, you're not going to return right back down to the place that you were 4 weeks ago when you walked in. Same is true of this, right? With the game of awareness that it essentially is. And one of the most empowering, probably the most empowering thing in my life was when I became aware of the story that I was telling myself and actually chose to do the work to change it. That was then followed by, I was saying to this business owner before when we were going through his story, it was followed by some of the most peaceful times of my life. Really, just effortlessness. was great. And it still is, it's obviously not perfect because I'm a human being, but, by default, whenever I'm in this zone and being aware of the story and being conscious, then yeah, usually it's kind of like Moses in the Red Sea. Things usually just part open and, I can kind of walk through things.
Yeah, when you think about it, our stories, there's all kinds of stories we tell ourselves, right? And we all have stories. And I know that when we've taught this before live at events and things like that, we always have a guy or two who's kind of like, well, stories, I don't really have any, or I'm not sure what mine are. But you have stories. You have stories around everything. So you have a story about yourself as it relates to drugs, right? So one thing we talk about is if I put heroin in front of you, will you take it or not? Right? For most people listening to this, the answer is going to be no. It's an absolute no. There's just no way I would do it. Well, the story about yourself and your identity is that you're not somebody who does that, right? Your story around alcohol, same thing. Your story around your fitness, right? Is your fitness a must for you, or is it a sometime event for you? For some people listening to this, they're going to be saying, well, I run every day, or I work out every day, or every other day, or whatever it means, right? I'm a CrossFitter. That's a story. And that story comes with an identity, right? And that identity and that story can be changed at any moment like that. And that's the beautiful part. So what I recommend that you do is you go to the territories, each territory, and identify what your story is in that territory, right? What is your story? If you're having problems in one territory or one specific area, then really look at that first, right? So if it's relationships, right? What is your story in your relationship with your wife? Write that story down. Write it as it is today, right? And you want to write that down and be very clear with what the story is that you have around your wife, her identity, your identity in the relationship. What's your identity as a husband? What's your identity as a father? What's your identity as a lover? Right? Write these things down. And the more raw you can be and real you can be about it, the more you're going to get out of it. And I do recommend writing it down, pen and paper, pencil and paper, whatever, rather than typing it, because there is a kinesthetic awareness that comes out of writing, right? There's been tons of studies on that. And then on top of writing that down, what I want you to do is look at that and then go back and highlight just the facts. 100% non-debatable facts. So if it's I'm a great father, you don't highlight that because that is debatable, right? Or maybe one part of your story is, well, I always do X, Y, Z. I always am great in bed, right? There's no always in life, so you can't highlight that either. Now, when I see this, Tim, when we do this exercise with the men, maybe 2-3 pages of writing, and maybe only 1 or 2 sentences that are actually highlighted, that are actually fact-based, undisputable in a court of law, undisputable statements around their identity. Now, they believe them to be undisputable, but really when you have somebody else look at it, usually it's only 1 or 2 lines. And the point with that whole thing is the rest of that is not highlighted is made up. It's a story. It's a story you're telling yourself. And the power in this, right, to be a powerful man, the power in this is you can rewrite that story to be anything you want. And to your point, Tim, it might take a while, right? It might feel awkward to all of a sudden stand up straight and, have your chest puffed out or whatever it is for you. But that's okay. It's like going to the gym. You just got to keep getting your reps in, keep getting your reps in. And that comes with writing a news story. Write out what that news story is going to be. Now, you can't affect the people and how they relate to you. That's the way it is. But what is your news story about yourself, right? If you come home every night and you get off, you're stressed from work and you're having cocktails or you're smoking cigarettes or whatever it is, you don't need months and months to quit. You can do that. There's a difference between someone says, I've been sober for 3 weeks, for someone who says, I don't drink. Right? There's a difference there. Now, both people don't drink, but one person's story is that they're sober for a certain period of time, whereas the other person's story is absolute. I don't drink. I'm using it as an example, but the same thing applies in your business, in your health, in your wealth, in your relationships, right? In yourself. All of these areas need to be looked at and identified, and the story gets to be crafted in a way that works for you. That's what this is all about. The idea of being a powerful man is about claiming your own rights, right? Claiming your own story. And part of that is uncovering where you are today, right? You got to know where you are today to hit the destination that you want to hit. Where are you today? And this is where you're getting really relevant and raw comes in handy. And this, it's great to do with other powerful men. This is one of the amazing parts of the synergy of having other men around you, right? They can look at that and go, I don't think so on this, or that's great. You're not pushing yourself hard enough, or you're pushing yourself too hard. But having someone look at it, because I can guarantee, and Tim, I'm sure you've experienced this and I have, is when we write it down, we go, okay, let's highlight the facts. We're highlighting stuff that aren't really facts, right? We're highlighting things that, well, it's true to me. My wife always argues. You don't understand, Doug, what's going on. But no, it's not true. It's not a fact. It's a story. And so these stories become our identities, guys. And you get to choose what your identity is. So right now, if there's an area of your life that's not operating optimally for you, I'm going to suggest that a part of this, and a major part of this, is your story around that part of your life and you and your identity around that.
I like it.
Awesome.
Oh, well, there's nothing really more to add, is there? I mean, it's amazing. It really is powerful to realize that you've been making up a story, and then, obviously there's, even that in itself can be very enlightening and lightening in many ways for somebody, right? And then, there's work to do after that, but, it's worth it. This is like the gym of life, right? So it's great. And I really hope the listeners do this exercise, because I think it'll be really, again, it's just undisputable, right? Gives you real optics of where you are currently operating from. And just like with anything, if you're going on a road trip and you put the destination in, the GPS then calculates where you're starting from. Same thing is true for these guys. If they want to be able to transform their marriage or the business or even their own level of happiness and fulfillment, instead of layering on more tools and more strategies and more, the beauty of this is that it's much more about less, right? It's much more about, hey, just pause for a moment. You don't need to be doing more. What if instead of actually, now here's something. What if all this time, the very thing that you were chasing was actually chasing you, and all you had to do was slow down and let it catch you up? Well, what if that was a situation, And then by default, one of the ways you slow down is just with this. Okay, cool. I'm going to pause and I'm going to deconstruct and peel some layers back on from the onion. Instead of adding more to it, I'm going to peel some back and take it slower. The biggest thing for me when I became aware of the story I was telling myself for, 28 years, 27 years, which was basically all around inadequacy, really, and not being good enough. The biggest thing that came from me was learning to just follow my instinct, which meant operating completely different to how I'd operated prior to that, quite frankly, because I always ignored it because it was terrifying. At least I thought it was. Whatever it told me to do was just terrifying. I was like, oh. So there's so much value in this, and it's so easy to not do this. It's so easy to listen to this podcast and be like, yeah, good one, I'll do that later. And then later comes and you listen to the next podcast and the next book and the next and the next and the next, but never actually actioning any of it. But thinking that you're making progress because you've read 10 books. Well, it's just taking you further away from where you're at. So I'd really, again, Doug, it's a brilliant exercise, and I really hope that people choose to do it. But it's their life, so to them.
I'm going to be more direct, guys. Make sure you do this, right? Make sure you do this in each territory. And so whatever area you're struggling in the most, if it's your fitness, your health, start there, right? For a lot of you, it's going to be relationships, right? Is your relationship with your wife spot on? If you're really honestly going on a scale of 10, 1 out of 10, we all know what that scale means. Are you a 10? Let's just say at least an 8, right? On most occasions. If you're not, crap, man, it's time to do something about it, right? In fact, if you haven't done the Reignite cheat sheet, it's free. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus. Right there, you can get the Reignite cheat sheet and start right from there. Start your relationship. Start rewriting the story. Start changing your identity and changing your future. Change the path that you're on with your wife, the path of you being a husband, a lover, and the person your kids are going to want to emulate when they get older, right? Your sons are going to want to be, a husband like you, and your daughters are going to want to marry a man like you, right? That's the idea. So you can get that cheat sheet for free and start today. It's over at thepowerfulman.com/bonus. It's really as easy as that. And for some of you guys, you might be interested in going a little deeper, right? If you are, go over to theactivationmethod.com and look at some videos and trainings that Tim has over there. It gives you an introduction to some of the course material. But either way, guys, what I want you to do is take action, right? I'm not going to say it's your life and you can do it if you want to do it. No, right? You're a big player. And I'm selfish here because I have children and I need more men like you to step up, more men like Tim out there to step up, because I want my kids to grow up in an amazing world, and we need great leaders. So guys, I'd love for you to do this. In fact, I'd love to see it. Love to see your answers. In fact, I'll be over in the Facebook community if you want to post them there. But either way, go ahead and put pause, put a note if you're at the gym right now working out or whatever it is, mark your calendar and get this done. It's that important. All right, gentlemen, that's it for another episode of The Powerful Man Show. We'll see you next time. Have an amazing day.